meeting will begin in 30 seconds. If you wish to speak, the meeting will begin in 10 seconds.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the October Department of Social Services Board meeting. And to start the meeting, we're going to observe a moment of silence. So, we good? Okay, again, welcome.
Sorry, I didn't know. I know that prayer was
Susan, anybody signed up for public comment? Okay, we have no for public comment. In terms of today's agenda, I know that we have something for consent agenda to add.
Right, it's a budget amendment.
Okay, so with that, could I have a motion to approve a day's?
So moved.
And
Second.
Okay. And everybody has received copies of the previous minutes.
Yes.
If you could take a second and look
Move
those
for
over.
approval with the,
Okay.
with corrections if there need to be any.
So if I could have a
None noted.
Okay, a second for that. Thank you. Okay, that moved along quickly. So next on our agenda was we're going to recognize some one retiree and some new employees here. So I'm going to turn it over to Miss Jan here
Okay.
to do some recognition.
Okay, we're gonna start with Miss Violet Collins. Violet, come on down. Violet is getting ready. She started ahead of the line. Violet is getting ready to celebrate her retirement the end of this month. I believe 27 years, is that what you told me? Part of it was in Beaufort County. She has 12 years here in Pitt County. She's worked in a variety of roles, but primarily adult services. I know you started out in Pitt County working with the, working in the adult care homes, helping with special needs that they might have, that kind of thing. Had some payee services, but primarily, since I've known Violet, she's been doing guardianship services. And so has run like crazy, has done a wonderful job for us, and we're gonna miss her, and she's, I know, looking forward to skipping out, but. We can invite her to come back and do some volunteering. So we wanted to give you the opportunity to be seen and recognized because you have contributed a lot over the 27 years you've been doing this kind of work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very nice. Okay, we're going to move on to our recognition of our new staff here. We've just started to do this. I guess last meeting was the first meeting we did it, so it's a nice thing. So, Jan,
Yeah, so, we have the people leaving and the people coming, and it's a good idea, so the people coming can see that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
27 years?
And Violet told me that it flew by faster than she thought. So, it is a good thing. So, we have 7 folks that have joined the agency now. I'll introduce them one at a time, and if they can come to the podium and introduce themselves and tell a little bit about where they are and give us the opportunity to recognize them so y'all can kind of meet and greet.
No
So
pressure.
No pressure, right.
No pressure at all.
And if you forget your name, that's okay.
That's it. We just want to see you, that's all.
That's right. So I want to first invite Kyle Chase, who's a new social worker with us. And Kyle was actually hired last month, but he was in training when we had this meeting. So Kyle, welcome aboard. I'll let you tell folks.
Thank you. My name is Kyle Chase. I started August the 12th. I'm going to be an on-call social worker with Keisha Adams' team.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So we're glad to have you with us, Kyle. Thank you.
Keisha Adams' team.
Yeah, we're doing teams. We're
Call-
doing teams.
call
Yeah,
team.
what team she doing?
She's the intake. She's the on-call supervisor, and also has a couple of investigators also.
Oh, okay.
So, but Keisha's primarily responsible for the after-hours workers.
Oh,
So,
congratulations.
yeah, we're glad to have him.
I thought it was a football team.
So we're going to ask you all to come back in 6 months too, and just to
Tell
kind
us.
of, to check in with us, okay?
And I'm excited they've all come back to work on day 2. So that's always a good thing too. Okay, Allie Vera, who's working in adult services. So come on down, Allie, and tell us a little bit about yourself, and we want to welcome you aboard.
Again, my name's Allie Vera. I started yesterday.
Welcome, Ally.
I'm a guardianship social worker with adult services. Prior to being hired at social services, I worked at Vidant Medical Center for 6 years, and then in the skilled nursing facility arena prior to that. So,
Lots of good experience.
Good experience, thank you.
yes.
Thank you.
Just the place for you.
Excited to have her with us, okay? So welcome. We got Jaleesa Staten
Jaleesa.
coming down. She's an income maintenance caseworker in redetermination.
She's at the home plate income maintenance.
I'm Jaleesa Staten. I am in the Redetermination Family and Children Department. I started yesterday, and
Welcome, Jaleesa.
I'm coming from Edgecombe County with 3 years of experience.
Thank you.
So great.
Well,
So whose team are you on?
Rebecca Mason.
Rebecca Mason's team. So
Welcome,
thank you,
Jaleesa.
thank you.
I like to hear the teams.
Yeah. So, Anisha Lewis, and I may screw that name up, but Anisha, did I mess that up? Anisha. See, I didn't know where to put that. Okay. And Anisha is an income maintenance caseworker, also in redeterm. So we're glad to have you.
My name is Anicia Lewis. I'm an income maintenance caseworker 1 in redetermination, and I'm on Keisha's Craig team. I started yesterday.
Welcome.
Welcome.
I'm not good with names.
And so we also have, now I'm going to mess this one up too, Sana Moore.
What?
How did I say that? Sana.
Sana.
Oh.
See, it's where I put the emphasis. So Sana's also in income maintenance.
Yes, good afternoon. As well you said, my name is Sana Moore. I'm with Family and Children's Medicaid as an income maintenance 1 caseworker, and I am new to Pitt County government.
Well,
So
welcome.
welcome to you.
Glad to have you.
Glad to have you.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Rebecca's
What?
team.
What was that?
Rebecca's team.
Rebecca's
So
team.
Rebecca's team.
Rebecca's team. All right.
Okay. All right, so now y'all gonna test me again. Let's see if I can do Miss Gilliam's first name. See, I just skipped it totally. And she's an income maintenance caseworker too.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Deja for short, Gilliam. I'll be working in the redetermination unit with Rebecca Mason at the Department of Social Services. I am a rookie, so I am new to social services, but I'm so excited, and thank you for the opportunity.
Now,
Glad
how
to
do
have
you
you
aboard.
pronounce your first name?
Quadeja.
Quadeja.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
With
I
Deja
won't
for short.
remember it.
Welcome.
Deja
Thank
for short.
you.
Okay,
Deja
great.
for short.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard.
And then we have, last but not least, Brooke Coley. So she's an income maintenance caseworker also.
Yes, ma'am. I started September 23rd. I am Brooke Coley, as she said, originally from Halifax County. Lived in Greenville for 5 years with my time at ECU. So I'm glad to be back. It's been a while, and I'm an income maintenance worker in Family and Children's Medicaid.
Well, welcome.
Thank you so much.
My undergraduate college student was from Halifax.
Okay. So welcome to everybody. We look forward to great things, and this is your board.
Yay!
And we really did this not to put you on the spot, but really to welcome you. And we really value the work that you're going to do. Thank you.
Certainly like for them to feel at home.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And y'all are welcome to stay or go, depending on what your workload says you should do.
You're welcome.
I like this. I like doing this. Oh, that's great, Jan.
Okay, we're going to move into our agenda here after completing that. And again, we have a special presentation today. We have a speaker, Mr. Stephen Strauss, and Stephen is with Developmental Associates in conjunction with a personnel search that we're going to be doing here very soon. We've asked him to come and share with him his services and what he can offer us in terms of the search process. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Strauss.
Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
After all that, I was wondering if instead of being a consultant, if I could file an application here for a position. This seems like a great place to work.
Glad to have you.
We could work on that.
Okay, I understand from Jan that you all have our proposal.
We do.
And I think it's probably most helpful for you to start on page 5, and I'll walk you through our process. But let me just start off first by kind of giving you the big picture, and then I'll get into the details. So we are not a traditional search firm. Traditional search firms focus on the front end of the hiring process, on recruiting and helping you with screening. And another thing that a traditional search firm tends to do is they like to make decisions for their clients to help you to sort of sort through all the information. We don't operate that way. Our mission is to try to give you the best information to make your decisions. And so our approach, as you'll see, is to try to really get good data for you about all these candidates for the position, to recruit a really excellent group, but also to make sure that you've got the best information to make each decision along the way. So I think you'll see that as I walk you through our process, and that really drives the way that we operate. Just a couple other things. We've been operating in North Carolina. I started off as a sole proprietor in 1991. I began there also a few years before that. I taught at the School of Government at UNC Chapel Hill for several years. I then moved to NC State University, where I taught in their Masters of Public Administration program for 24 years. And at the same time, built this business and went from a sole proprietor to now we have about 12 or 13 people that work with us. So we do almost all of our work in North Carolina. We've recently expanded into Virginia and Georgia in particular. But we have focused mostly on North Carolina during all this time. On page 5, you'll see step 1. So the first thing that we do is we want to get a really good feel for what the challenges are that are facing the deputy director position, but also the organization as a whole. We want to know what are the key issues in the community that you're dealing with, what are the key technology or staffing issues that the organization needs to address, morale, which looks great to me so far, but is there any concerns?
They've only
with
been here
regard
a
to
week, you know.
that? But we want to understand what those key issues and challenges are. The typical search firm will come in and say, you know, what are the requirements of the job? What kind of competencies are you looking for? We want to understand what the organization is dealing with, not just what the individual is dealing with. Because at this level, this person would have to be dealing with those major organizational challenges as opposed to just, you know, the routine of every day. We'd like to do that by involving all the key stakeholders. We would want you all to tell us who those are. We would obviously want to get input from the board. We'd want to get input from the top level of the organization, middle level of the organization, and from staff. You may want us to get some input from community members or clients. We're glad to do that as well. So we really would like to get an in-depth understanding from all the key stakeholders' perspectives. We learn something with every stakeholder group that we talk to, and it really helps inform us and give us a big picture, but also get a sense of what the future is going to be like for this next person. Then we will develop a candidate profile. We'll put together a job ad for you. We really have turned the corner in the last 3 or 4 years with regard to this. We put together a very attractive electronic brochure that we can send out to candidates. We would also post it on all the key professional websites. I'm sure many that Jan is aware of, but also we've done enough of these now that we have several websites that we would recommend that the county refer to for placing the position. We also recruit using actually 4 other methods. So posting on key websites. We use LinkedIn or social media to recruit. We also, particularly in North Carolina, we can connect to some listservs for social services directors where we can get the word out in that fashion as well. Then obviously we would target individuals for the position and reach out to individuals that we think might be really good fits for Pitt County. And last of all, if you flip over to the next page, I'm kind of racing a little bit ahead of myself. We're now at step 5 actually. We would require all the candidates to complete an online application for the position. The reason we do that is candidates for this level position are going to tend to send in resumes, and the problem with resumes is we find there are 3 different types. One, they tend to be based more on chronology of, I started here and here are all the things I've done since then, or based on accomplishments. And we also very often find that otherwise very good candidates don't know how to put a decent resume together, and so it's just kind of a mess. So it's really hard to compare candidate A to candidate B when they put resumes together that are totally different. So we will get their resumes, we will get their cover letters, but we also would have them complete an online application where we're getting exactly the same information from every candidate. That information and that application would be based upon what we learn in those focus groups as the key requirements for the position. So it's tailored specifically to Pitt County and for the position. What we do is we recruit for about 30 days. And then we would, and I'm not quite sure who all the key players would be. Obviously, the director. I don't know if the board would be involved in this as well. So we would want to meet with all of you. We would send you the information ahead of time. And the information we would send you would be this. You would be able to access any candidate's cover letter and resume. You would also be able to look at their application. But what we also do is we go through and screen every single one for you. We put it together on a color-coded spreadsheet with the colors green, yellow, and red. You can imagine what those represent. And we score the candidates with respect to how well they seem to fit what the county's looking for. We also do a Google search on all the candidates at that point, and we provide you with a link to the information that we retrieve through the Google search. So if there's something out there in the public domain, we'll tell you a little bit, we'll give you a brief little synopsis of what that is, but you can click on that yourself if you want to and actually read any articles about the candidates for the position. We get you that 2 or 3 days ahead of time. We then have a meeting with you, and we actually would have a total of 3 meetings with you. This would be the first. And we would ask you to go through those applications. We'll discuss them, share information, have a dialogue with you about each of the candidates. We would ask you to reduce those candidates down to no more than 15. Those would then go through a secondary screening process, which is described for you at the bottom of page 6 at step 6. We actually have a great deal of pride in terms of our secondary screen. We actually think it's probably more thorough than what most organizations do when they actually make a hiring decision. We use 3 different methods. One, we would have all the candidates go through a structured telephone interview. Most of our staff are retired local government executives that we use to help us with recruitment and screening and so forth. We would have a retired social services director. I've actually been talking with this person, and I think she's going to be on board with that if we get the proposal. And she would conduct a structured telephone interview with you, with each of the candidates, I mean. Structured set of questions, but also a structured rating system, which was called the behaviorally anchored rating scale. It's a 1 to 5 scale, but we denote what each number of that scale means before we begin to interview the candidates so that we know ahead of time exactly what we're looking for. She would keep a detailed set of notes on her interviews so you could actually read the narrative of exactly what the candidates say, but you can also see how she scored the candidates on those questions. At that point, we also, even though the questions are structured, we always have some extra questions that we might tailor to an individual, such as your application didn't explain why you left the job in 2016. Can you tell us what went on with that? Or why you've had 3 jobs in the last 4 years, that kind of, whatever it may be in the application that raises eyebrows. We'll get that information for you. That takes us about 2 weeks. We then bring that information to you, and we also will have a short essay survey that we'll conduct with each of the candidates. That will also be scored. And third, we use emotional intelligence testing for our process. The emotional intelligence factors we look at are on page 9. We administer an inventory called the EQ 2.0. It's validated for employment purposes, so it can legally be used in conjunction with other methods to make hiring decisions. When you interview a candidate, you're going to be trying to assess their competencies in these areas. But to some extent, as I'll explain, there's a bit of guesswork in doing that when you're interviewing candidates. We get a much more accurate rating of these factors because we're using, again, a validated instrument. So the factors we look at have to do with emotional self-awareness. That's a really huge issue for candidates. It has to do with how in touch they are with their own emotions. It's kind of a basic building block of emotional intelligence. It's also a good indicator of how interested they are in professional growth. And obviously that would be a very important factor for somebody in this position. Self-regard or self-confidence, obviously. Self-actualization, how their goal orientation, what kind of meaning they get out of their work. Their self-expression, are they the sort of person who can share their feelings with other people, particularly, for example, giving praise, being open with people about their performance. Can they think and act independently? Can they be assertive in a collaborative way, working out problems face-to-face with other folks? Interpersonal realm looks at, are they the sort of person that likes to get out and connect with folks? That's interpersonal relationships. A low score on that is indicative of somebody who would prefer to sit in their office and not connect with people. Do they have empathy, and are they a team player or have social responsibility? With regard to decision making, we look at their impulse control. Are they the sort of person that gets information and think it through before they make a decision, or do they impulsively act? Do they see reality objectively? Are they a systematic problem solver? And then last of all, we look at their stress management factors, which have to do with, can they adjust when they're dealing with stressful situations? Do they have good stress tolerance? And do they have a can-do attitude when they're dealing with challenging situations, which I am quite confident would be very important. Yeah. So we look at all these factors through that instrument. Now, let me again review. Secondary screen, structured telephone interview by a subject matter expert, essay questions that also get scored by a different person on our staff, and administration of the emotional intelligence inventory by a psychologist on our staff. 3 different methods. We carry them all out independently. We keep a firewall between each one because I know you all have had this experience. You interview somebody, you like them. That may impact how you look at their results in these other methods. So we have 3 independent perspectives. pull all that together, meet again with you, share all that information with you, and ask you to reduce the number of candidates down to no more than 6. And those folks would be invited to come back to Greenville or Pitt County to go through an assessment center process. So let me explain what that means. And that's all that's described for you on page 7, basically steps 7 through 10. So here's a key way of thinking. Let me explain kind of the philosophy, and then I'll go into a little bit more of the specifics. So all of us love to interview candidates. We all sort of have the perspective that, if I can see and hear the candidate and I can ask them the questions that I want to ask them, then I can accurately assess the candidate. The reality of it is we don't really know much after an interview. We are believers in interviews. Remember, we've used the interview for a secondary screen of the candidates, so it's not like we're against them, but we also think that they're very limited. Basically, interviews tell you what the candidate would say. You don't see how they act. And so when you're interviewing a candidate, what you can learn is their oral communication skills as they answer questions. You can observe how well they can use the English language. You can ask them what they know, so you could ask them questions about different programs and so forth and find out what they know. And last, you can ask them questions that involve judgment, such as a situational question. So, for example, you have the nursing director reports to you. I'm sorry, not the nursing director, but you have social work supervisor who reports to you, whose performance isn't what it needs to be. You're going to meet with this person. How are you going to handle that discussion? And so they describe how they would handle that situation. And what have you learned? Well, you've learned 3 things: their oral communication skills, their knowledge about how to manage performance, and their judgment about how they would deal with that individual. Here's what you don't know at the end of an interview. Can they handle conflict well with staff? Well, they told us they could. Well, again, that's what they said. We don't know what they could do. Can they run an effective staff meeting? Well, they told us they could do that, but we haven't seen that. Can they make an effective presentation? Don't know that either. What is their actual leadership approach? Not what do they say it is, but how do they actually lead? Can they actually write? And can they put a program together and a plan together? Don't know any of that at the end of an interview. So what we do is we design exercises, and this is actually what I consider the most fun part of our work. We design exercises that simulate what it would take to be the Deputy Social Services Director in Pitt County. Again, based on what we've learned through those focus groups. Very typically, we have exercises that, again, this is kind of a generic type of exercise, but we would have an exercise where rather than asking them how are they going to work with that casework supervisor with regard to their performance, we would actually have someone who would sit down with the candidate, and the candidate would actually have to work through those issues with that individual as if they were the actual casework supervisor. So we could actually observe conflict resolution skills, problem-solving skills, leadership skills. I'm not quite sure, again, what their responsibilities would be, but it's not at all unusual for a deputy director to have some budgetary responsibilities. If that's the case, we would actually give them the department budget. We would give them some sort of an upcoming challenge, program challenge, for example, or a new initiative, and we would ask them to make a presentation and demonstrate their budget analysis skills, and then we would grill them with some questions, just like the board might when they're meeting with the board to make such a presentation. We very often have them doing something like staff meetings where they could be meeting with key folks that they supervise or a committee of the department. And we typically have them do some sort of a writing exercise where they have to take some sort of initiative and put a plan together for how they would carry it out. We do other exercises too, but I'm guessing those would be the ones that are most relevant. Again, we design the exercises based upon what the job demands are. The way we orchestrate this is we typically run it in a 2-day process, and we would recruit assessors. Probably we would have to recruit about 13 to 14 folks. We are glad to involve community members as part of that group. We also strongly encourage our clients to include subject matter experts, so other social services directors or perhaps you could have assistant or county managers, a few of those mixed in as well, maybe one or two HR directors. But we would want kind of a mixture, but particularly want to make sure that if you all want to have some community members, we'll involve them, but we also want to combine them with some subject matter experts. It's a 2-day process. Morning of day one is all training. We train folks on how to rate the candidates, and this is something that we take a lot of pride in, objectively and in a behavioral-based way. When most of us conduct interviews, we come away with an assessment of the candidates that's very opinionated and very subjective, like this person's very professional or very self-confident or seems to have a lot of relevant experience. We look for more specific kinds of things. Did they get everybody involved in the staff meeting? Did they address all the issues? Did they actually put the conflict on the table and work it out with this person, or did they avoid it? We want to know, and did they spell words correctly? We want to know specifics about how the candidate performed, and we provide that directly to you. So we don't filter it. We give you exactly what the candidates have done, so you know exactly what their performance was. And that's a major part of our training for the assessors. By the afternoon of the first day, they are ready to run the exercises. We can typically have run three iterations of each exercise on the afternoon of day one. Then the next day, we can run up to 3 iterations again. So we can get 6 candidates through the process. And that typically means we wrap up around lunchtime on the second day. And the way we orchestrate that is we typically have the board come in, get lunch, and then right after lunch, each team comes in one team at a time to meet with the board. This is closed session because this is personnel information. And they meet with the board and share the results. And so you can ask them directly about how each candidate performed in the exercise and why they got the score that they did in each exercise and so forth. So team at a time, that usually takes us about, that one is a long meeting. That's usually about a 2.5 to 3 hour meeting. When all the assessors have left and shared with you all the feedback on the candidates, our processes include a combination of technical competencies, such as analyzing a budget, and emotional intelligence competencies, such as resolving conflicts and problem solving and so forth. You're going to hear about both when you get feedback from the assessors. And then what we do is we bring in the emotional intelligence inventory and we say, all right, here's what you heard from the assessors with respect to the interpersonal skills or the problem solving skills of the candidate. Here's what the instrument also tells us. And as a result, we're able to cross-validate the information that the assessors provided with the results of the instrument. And our approach is intended to try to give you the best information, again, to make your decision, just as I started off. I would just add one statistic. The traditional hiring process that is interview-driven, researchers routinely find that at best you're able to predict 30% of a candidate's ability to do the job. The process that we're recommending to you is not perfect by any means, but research typically shows that it's about 65 to 80% accurate in terms of predicting candidates' ability to do the job. So there is no perfect process, but it's over twice as accurate as a traditional interview-driven approach. And hopefully that explanation makes it clear as to why that's the case. Once you've settled on someone, there should be a background investigation to make sure that everything in the background of the candidate is sound. And then you'd be ready to make you obviously would make a conditional offer of employment before the background, and then the background usually takes 1 to 2 weeks to finalize everything. So from start to finish, we're talking at a timeline of getting to the assessment center. The quickest we can do that is 65 days. So background investigation, they make a they may want to have 30 days before they report to work and so forth. So we could be talking about better part of 4 months before you actually get somebody on board. Again, if it's an external candidate. If it's an internal candidate, obviously that wouldn't take so long. One last thing, let me say that about internal candidates too. We almost always, not always, but almost always have internal candidates in our process. And that's perfectly fine. Again, it's your decision whom you involve, and if you have internal candidates, that's great. They get assessed just like everybody else. They get assessed by folks that don't have a stake in whether they get the position or not. Again, it's an objective process. And we sometimes find that internal candidates can sometimes surprise and really step up in a process like this. But whether they do or not, our commitment is always to give them feedback. And we can give them very intensive professional development feedback that's sort of like at the Center for Creative Leadership in Greensboro, because we've had them going through exercises where we can actually observe their performance. And we have a psychological to cross-validate all that. So we meet with them and we provide them with all that information in a very frank but supportive way. And we talk with them about what they can do to improve so they can, get another step up on their career. And hopefully the next time that an opportunity comes around, if they didn't get this one, then they can be a more viable candidate. And we also provide that feedback to the successful candidate, because nobody comes through the process without something to work on. So we'll give them that feedback too. So that's it. I'm guessing you all may have some questions, but that's our process.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Y'all know I have a question.
We need it.
I have a question.
Absolutely. We have questions.
I was looking at your section of who we are. On page 11. I see you have the city of Wilson mentioned twice. Have you assessed and done two?
We've done several things for Wilson. I didn't mean to
slots
list
for
it
Wilson,
twice.
or is it that
I lost track.
You just made it.
We helped them hire a police chief. We've helped them hire their fire chief. And she's moved on to another position. It was at the time we helped them, it was downtown coordinator as well.
So those are two different positions.
Yes, ma'am,
That's
but
why.
it should have
That's
just
good.
been listed once. Many of those have multiple positions. Many of those clients we've worked with. for
I
multiple
participated in the recruitment for the Onslow County DSS director, so that's how I got connected. And
Yeah, and I will just tell you, they are just delighted with her as
she
well.
should be good.
Yeah.
So have you had experience with other DSS positions?
We have. We are sort of just now getting into DSS processes. We've done 5 that I can think of, and there may be another one or two that I can't think of. We've did Onslow County, we've done Cleveland County, we've done Macon County, we've done Transylvania County actually twice. And darn it, I forgot the other one, but there's another one out there.
So would our organizations assign a lead person? Would we connect with one person that would take the lead in coordinating activities, or how does that work? Or would you work with a bunch
From your
of-
staff, is that what you're referring?
Well, no, in terms of your organization.
Oh, I see. Anytime we do a project, there are typically about 4 of us involved in it. I would be the lead person, but I can. I tease back and forth with my staff because quite often when they're taking the lead on something and I'm not there, our clients give better feedback about them than they do about me. So, but we have there would be 4 different people that would be working on it. Again, a retired social services director, my partner who's an organizational psychologist, Dr. Heather Lee, myself, and we also have a customer services person that would work with you all very closely as well. So there'd be 4 of us in particular for this project.
So you mentioned that you were not like your traditional headhunters. Do you maintain a database of candidates or that you actually work with to place?
Oh, are you talking about in terms of tracking their performance or in terms of recruitment? Recruitment, yes, we do. And in fact, the system that we use is called, for receiving applications, is called NeoGov. It's the largest source of government jobs in the country, and looks like you're familiar with it. Yeah. And so that gives us a nice system to track all the folks that go through our processes. We obviously are aware of folks that really stood out that we'd like to recruit because, again, sometimes we have just really exceptional candidates to get the position, but there's some very good candidates right behind them too. So we definitely keep track of those folks as well.
Yeah, and that was kind of where I was thinking of possible already candidates that might not have made a cut somewhere else, but actually were legitimate.
Right.
Just wasn't a perfect fit or didn't get chosen.
Absolutely.
So you would have access to those folks?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We would. And the other thing too is the person that we would have recruiting has, I think, about 30 years of experience in DSS in North Carolina and is really well connected. So that would be a key. That would be a key for us.
So with NeoGov, do you have a standalone or do you work with the actual state to post and?
We have a standalone.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we would also, of course, social services. We would need to coordinate with the state and make sure that they all meet certification requirements and so forth. But,
Yeah, there'd be a few kinks we'd have to work out based on how we're set up compared to some of the other counties. And, the board would be involved. My thought process on this would be a big couple of y'all would be involved in the process, and myself, and we would work from there and then bring back to the board what the decision was. But, and I know we in Pitt County do our background checks before we actually make any kind of conversation with the candidate about the job offer. So
Sure.
little kinks to work out, but basically pretty similar to what you do everywhere.
Okay.
How do you validate your success rate?
Well, doing almost all of our work in North Carolina, we really pride ourselves in doing repeat business with our clients.
Mm-hmm.
So we go back to our clients, we find out how the person that we place is doing and so forth.
Okay.
The other thing is, if we don't do well, we won't be doing business because we work in a small environment. Any other search firm that I'm aware of is national. And so they can screw up a process, in Richmond, Virginia, and then apply for a project here in Greenville, and you don't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
But in North Carolina, given that everybody that we work with, is pretty much in touch, they know about our work, and that's how we've built a business, is based on word of mouth. I will just tell you though that our sense of candidate success is about 90% or higher. It is not perfect, and we've had one or two that did not make it. But that, again, that's always going to happen. There is no perfect process. One of the things that we really pride ourselves in, though, is we try to learn from our mistakes. And the biggest mistakes that we've made over the years is not paying enough attention to the emotional intelligence inventory. Because we sometimes have what I call a false positive. A candidate can do well in the assessment center. It's very rare that this happens. But their emotional intelligence analysis does not fit with their high level of performance. And what we have done in the past is say, well, look, they perform so well in the assessment center, we're not sure that the instrument's going to be fully accurate. And the instrument's been fully accurate every time. So the reason they did not succeed was predicted in the instrument itself. In fact, I won't tell you the names, but we have a client that we've done probably 10 or 15 processes with. And after about the second one, they contacted us because they had to terminate one of the people that we hired. And they said, we're not sure we want to continue doing business with you. Look at what happened to this person. And I said, did you look at what we reported back to you? You all made the hire. We don't try to steer you in terms of who you hire, but did you look at the reports that we provided you when you made this hiring decision? And they said, well, no, that was a couple of years ago. I said, please look at it. And the reports actually predicted that this person would have issues with staff. So the materials tend to work if again, I'm not going to argue that it's perfect. I don't want to be one of those consultants that tells you, everything's going to be perfect. It's hard to find good people, and it's hard to assess them accurately. But we think we do better than anybody else in the profession, really.
Any other questions for Mr. Strauss?
Not right now. I'll hold the rest of my questions till later if you don't mind.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. You've
You're
given us
quite
a
welcome.
lot
Thank you
to
for
think
the
about.
opportunity.
And so
we'll be in touch.
We will be in
Okay,
touch.
sounds
Thank
good.
you, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. So a lot to think about.
A lot to think about.
He knows what's in here, that's for sure.
Okay, let's move forward with the agenda here, so
Do
I,
we get to keep these? Yes.
yeah. Items for decision, we get a couple here, let's look at quickly. The director's work plan, I know that came forward in last month's, at the last month's meeting, and you have a copy of that. And I think what we're looking to do today, if anybody has any questions about that, you tabled it last month,
Yes, we did.
right? So, were there questions, or
I don't have any questions about it.
if not, would
I certainly read it.
Okay. So if there's no questions, I guess the action would be just to approve that work plan? And we'll use that
Okay.
for this year?
For this year's evaluation.
Yes.
Okay, we'll get that to HR, so we'll be ready to go.
So does that need a,
There's always a place for comments if you
Absolutely.
want to.
Right,
absolutely.
right, certainly.
That was the only thing I didn't see, because y'all know I like to talk.
So that's just a discussion item, we don't need a motion
I
on
don't
that?
think we do.
Okay,
We just wanted
good.
to make sure that y'all were in agreement with
Absolutely,
it.
so we will use
yeah.
that, and I need to do some research. Janice provided me with some stuff to educate myself in this process, so we're good to go. And then, in terms of selecting a date for our board retreat.
Oh, that's so hard.
And I think historically, we've done it in January?
We've done it in January lots of times, and we have tried the last few times to do it on your regular board meeting day, just coming in earlier for that discussion, because usually around 1-ish, 2-ish, something like that, and working, 4 to 5. So January 14th would be your typical board meeting date in January.
Isn't that
and
Martin,
we
is
just-
that Martin Luther King
No, I
time?
don't think so.
Okay, it's before Martin Luther King
Yeah,
time.
so we just need to, and the issue is reserving a space.
Correct.
Because we need to get on somebody's books pretty quick to have a place to go do this. We can talk next month more about what you want to talk about.
I guess that there's precedent to do it on that date, so, in terms of that January meeting. So I would suggest, unless anybody has issue with it, to go ahead and reserve that time, and we would
I gotta
convene.
compare with some other calendars,
Mhm.
just in case.
Okay,
Okay.
So we're gonna
Susan-
consider
Susan
January
did
the
that.
14th, is that what we're saying? Okay.
and we would meet like at 2:00. We'd begin to meet at 2:00 and run through
Right.
5:00.
And I'll bring my popcorn.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll be good.
That sounds good. Thank you, Mary. I look forward to that.
We need
Okay,
to do the item for consent, which was the budget amendment.
correct.
Move approval of the consent items. Did we vote on that?
Yeah, we just need to do that.
Okay, so we did have one addition to the agenda. It was for the consent. Do we need to talk about that, Jan, or do we
No,
need to?
unless y'all have a question, you had it in front of you, it's money that we've been given that is rolled forward back into the budget.
Right, so I just need a motion to go ahead
So
and.
moved.
Okay, in a second?
Second.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna move into the director's report, and we're gonna start out with Medicaid transformation.
Okay. Well, Medicaid transformation is moving like crazy. We have had our big fair on last Friday. We had about probably 25 to 30 folks come through where all of the different providers were there, the PHPs. We actually had somebody enroll. Even though the enrollment has not started yet, we had somebody to enroll with a PHP. So, it was a good thing. I would like to have had a whole lot more folks there. Mostly it was citizens from the community. I know Mr. Cox was there. We had, some of our own staff were over there trying to find out what was going on and trying to understand, what different folks were offering. So good event. I put it in my notes to y'all that we have been out all over the place trying to talk about this, passing out information. They're to give me a date on the television idea that Mr. Dancy had, so they're working on that. We are continuing to offer to go out. The Housing Authority is going to try and set up some meetings with me and with their community folk as they have community meetings. I know one of the Head Start agencies has Margaretta Howard coming to talk with their parent group, so we're trying to get the word out to folks. The plan, the enrollment broker will start having, we start going live with actual enrollment on October the 14th. Packages have gone out, enrollment packages have gone out to all the folks that need to enroll. And so on October 14th, the enrollment broker will be on site at the Human Services Center to help with walk-ins who might have questions or need help enrolling. There is the potential that Pitt County may have 2 enrollment brokers. If that's the case, we have talked about possibly placing them maybe on a rotating basis, maybe out at the Bernstein Center and out at ECU Physicians. Thank you, Brian. And so, because they have a lot of Medicaid population coming into those 2 places, and they're not private physician groups, they are connected with state or federal kinds of operations, so that felt like that would not be a bad thing. So we're not 100% sure yet if that's gonna work out. So we are moving forward as best we can. Brian or somebody told me that we've had at least 1 person enroll via phone also. So Pitt County has at least 2 people enrolled, and we have not started enrollment yet, so we're happy about that. So that's kind of what's going on with Medicaid transformation. I will tell you that the group that was only supposed to be in 2 regions has now added a 3rd region. It's not us, so it won't have an impact on us, but they are now moving into a 3rd region. So I don't know if they will expand any further or not. We've begun to take a look at where different folks are sitting as far as doctors, and are a little concerned about the doctors enrolling, but you know, it just kind of is what it is at this point. So, anybody got any questions about where we are with Medicaid transformation?
I'd like to make a comment on you. I'd like to thank you so much for the presentation you did in my district regarding Medicaid transformation, even though I couldn't make it because I was a bit under the weather, a little more than under the weather, but I did get a lot of phone calls and comments saying that it was really good, because you get so much. Like today, I got 3 letters from my healthcare stuff, and you just toss it. So now they're saying, I can't just throw these letters aside anymore. I have to do something with them. So if you didn't do anything else, you at least told them to look at the letters. Right. And that's very important.
And that's the important thing right now. Open your mail.
Open your mail from your health care people.
Right.
And that's very important because things are changing.
And if anybody wants any flyers, materials, posters, I have a lot of them. Brian has a lot over at the other building. We're more than happy to share out in the community where you can have some at various sites if you want them. So just stop by and ask or email me or whatever.
Thank you, Jane.
Okay. The only other thing I was going to report on this month, as I do normally, is our application process, and you can see we continue to do well in that area. We had a percent process timely of 94 and 95%, and our average processing time for the MAD is 61 out of 90 days and 30 out of 45 days for the other Medicaid. So folks are doing what they need to do. We are meeting the standards that we're supposed to meet, and folks are getting the services that they need. And as far as our vacancy report, you can tell from today we are hiring people.
Hallelujah.
And some of those people are on this list of people that we just hired. Right now, we're down to 16 positions, and none are frozen. We've got 2 interviewing, 3 we're advertising, 7 we're in background check process, and we've got 4 sets of applications we're screening. So we are moving right along on keeping that moving. So And that's pretty
Good
much what
stuff.
I got, unless y'all got something.
So I want to just circle back around to the presentation we had in terms of, from Developmental Associates, in terms of if we have anything we need to discuss or you want to talk about, or kind of what we're thinking about that at this point.
And in the room, you've got Florida Hardy, who has participated in some of these. Cynthia Ross has participated in one, and Brian Barnett has participated in some before as part of the assessment center process. So if you've got any questions for any of them.
There was one thing I saw in that. Is it time to bring it up?
Oh, this is the time for discussion, sure. I just
Okay.
wanted to circle back around to it, Mayor, if we could.
Okay, since you're circling around, I was looking at page, let's see, I saw something at page whatever. I wonder if, that page comes from your department, Jan, or does it come through Brian? I was gonna give you the page number, but somehow I know when you start looking and close it
What
up, we
was
can't
the-
get back to it. Here it is, on page 10.
You're into the, right, the money. You're
Yeah.
into the money.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Well, you have Angela here to answer that question.
Okay.
But we have looked to see if we can afford to do this.
This is what my
And, yeah,
question is.
and we can move some money around in order to make this happen, if that's what y'all decide you wanna do.
Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is because we've started some new things, like the greeting new staff and all that, and that helps with morale. And I have personal peeves about morale. And I think to keep the staff happy, a happy staff is a good staffer, and they do the work. So, I know that if we take on this group, we first gotta know we can find the money, Mr. Brian. And we can take care of this. Do you have one of these?
He does have one.
Okay, on page 10, that's where I am. Now, if we can do that, that would take weight off of Jan and the staff, because I know she has a lot to do with all the new stuff coming down the pipe and these conference calls and everything else. So if there is some way we can take care of this, and this is the very last one that says the maximum fee will be for each person.
I don't think that one, there are gonna be different things in here, so we wouldn't necessarily have to do that one.
Okay, all right, because that one sort of hit me.
Because
as a-
we typically in Pitt County already do a background check, we have a process. And as he indicated in here, and in other discussions, that we could do our own background check.
Okay, all right.
That was
Because
just if we
that
didn't have it.
that can run our bill out of whack.
Yeah, no, we would not be doing that.
So, what I'm thinking, my own, so you all know, I'm very open about what my thoughts are. When we can ease the pressure on the staff, we can ease the pressure on what we need to get done, since Ms. Byrne is gonna go anyhow.
We've drug it out as long as we can, I
We
think.
have, and she has been very cooperative to move it out, and thank you so much, Ms. Byrne, for changing your date of retirement for us. So, this looks good. I think it will help all of us with our busy schedules, and also help the department, because still new things are coming down the pipe for the staff to do. Is that right, Ms. Elliott?
There's always something
Always.
happening.
There's always new stuff for social service staff. So I think if we can alleviate some of this, it will be really good. And if you can work it out with everybody, I'm for it. That's what I was getting to.
Ms. Perkins Williams, can I make a comment about that?
We actually do have, I've looked, we do have the money it's in our budget, so Brian would not have to do anything as far as giving us any extra money. And we'll also get a reimbursement amount on that once we actually do it and spend the money. So we'll get part of that money back. So as far as the budgeting process goes, we're good.
Good for you, good for you. All right, now. So there you go, y'all.
Yeah, I would be interested in hearing from the staff here who participated in the process to see what you thought about it. Sounds great to me because it's competency-based, and it takes some of the subjectivity away. So I'd like to hear from you.
Don't all speak at once. Come on up to the podium so the public can see you. There you go. See, I broke my glasses, so I needed to get you up a little closer so I can see you good.
I'm Florida Hardy. I'm the county's Human Resources Director, and I did have, Jan and I did go to Onslow County together. I think we were in two different centers. I was actually assigned to the staff meeting side of it. So it was an opportunity to get to see how the candidate would interact with some problem employees who were, you know, in a staff meeting. The process itself, it was very intensive. It was very serious. They take it very seriously, and everyone that they had invited to be a part of that assessment team, I mean, we had some serious instructions, and we were expected to follow those instructions so that they could give Onslow County the best decision that they could. But it was a great process. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think Jan and I both learned something from it. But it was a great process, and the session I did sit in was good. And everybody that they had invited, and we had people from, I think probably she and I were the farthest away, driving from Pitt County. And especially the fact that they did have some internal candidates. So I thought the process made it fair, equitable, impartial, because most of the people who were working, there were some from Onslow County who were part of the team as well, but having all these other folks come in, and I didn't know any of the candidates, so that was a good thing for me. So I thought it was a great process.
They had the health director involved, they had some HR folks involved, they had, I mean, because there was nobody who was currently in the DSS structure involved in the assessment centers, but they had other county department heads or those, you know, and outside folks.
You know, they, from what I understand, Pitt County is one of those continued poverty.
High poverty counties.
Yeah, high poverty county, and we are reoccurring poverty people in Pitt County, so you recommend it?
If we can afford it, yes. If that
Okay,
sounds like
I
they
just
can,
want to
yeah.
know your person, I mean, we're not
I
asking
recommend
for-
the process. It was
Thank
a
you.
great process, yes.
Thank you. All right, some more out there?
I went through the process with City of Winston-Salem, Durham County, and City of Wilmington. And I echo what Florida said. It gives you the objective opinion of multiple people, people from outside the organization. And you may have a candidate that's doesn't interview well, but they're very competent in their knowledge, and they handle a conflict very well during the role play, or they can give a really good presentation. So I think it gives you a more well-rounded view of your candidates than just sitting in a panel and answering a set of predetermined questions. So I recommend it. All the candidates that I have assessed are still working where they were at. I would have been nice if Mr. Strauss had a clause in there, if they don't work out, we get some of the money back.
Yeah, that would be good.
I think there's something in there, if they don't work out, I saw some mention of that.
But I do think the process, if you all are involved as a board, I will tell you it's a long 2 days. When you go through the debrief, it's a lot of information that you'll have to digest on the different candidates. And I think they even do have an opportunity, if you have multiple candidates that you want to bring back and you all specifically interview, if you're stuck on one or two, they can still give you that option.
And again, I will say that technically this position is a position that I hire. But I believe it's very important for this board to have some understanding and be part of at least the process, just because of the importance of this position to the agency.
That I fully understand. But I think it's important that we have a person to relate someone with whom we all feel comfortable with and walk up to. And at least when I pass them on the street, I can say, hey, you know, that's important to people who are poor.
Yeah. Okay.
Very important.
You have anything to add, Cynthia?
Good afternoon. I participated in Onslow County with the Senior Services Director. I don't think anybody except for those who've participated can tell you how intensive the process is. You are educated as an assessor to look for certain behaviors. I've conducted a lot of interviews in my time here, hired individuals, and in that brief education that I got as an assessor taught me things I've been doing wrong. So it's such a good process. I did the activity with the presentation. So individuals had to come in, and it's a role play. And we are told to look for certain behaviors and indicate how the frequency we see certain behaviors, and they're categorized, and it's so mathematically tallied. So it's as clean a process and removes as much human bias. So I might have one who I just really liked the way they engaged. I liked the ideas they brought, but that's not necessarily what the exercise is about. It's about observing certain behaviors that predict success. One of the other interesting facts that he didn't cover, and I was surprised, is that there's been one of their clients who was sued because a candidate felt like they were qualified. And they actually sued because of not getting hired, and it stood up legally. So it was impressive that it was able to stand up through the scrutiny of all of the process that they went through. So I was surprised that he didn't necessarily cover the information about the validity of it and how it can stand, the whole process can stand on its own. It just removes as much human bias and that we can't get rid of ourselves personally.
Thank you.
So again, y'all can
So any
talk
other
about it or.
comments, any other questions?
They haven't talked at all. I'm the only one doing the talking today. I feel good, y'all. You know that, don't you? I feel so much
feel
good, and
better.
I'm grateful to it, but y'all time.
I asked the questions I needed to ask.
So we don't need to make a decision today. Obviously, we make a decision today, that moves things further, but you don't have to make a decision today. So y'all just need to decide, no.
So what's the pleasure of the group? Do you want to study this a little bit more?
Well, now, we just got this right here today, and that's how many pages?
It's a packet.
So you know I haven't read all that since I've been sitting up here in this podium.
Okay.
So we do need to study it.
I would say we need to study and come back and make a decision.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for staying with me and going around and revisiting that. I felt that we had left some stuff on the table that we needed to talk about. Okay, so we'll move to board member comments. Anybody have anything to say?
I think I've covered my agenda. I'd like to thank all of you for your prayers, your best wishes, your concerns during my unexpected illness. Never been sick before, and but God has a way of getting your attention. And so I guess I needed to slow down. And so I'm gonna rest, do a relaxed schedule at the office because we don't have staff and I'm the major staffer, so that when December comes, we'll be ready for LEAP. I do plan to assist the people with LEAP because the district really, and everybody, because I get them from Aiden and everywhere, I really plan to get back on my game, but I will not be in the office as much as I have been because I am still healing. Thank you so very much.
Any other comments?
I would just like to say thanks to Jan and her staff for all that they do, and welcome aboard the newcomers, and look forward to working with you.
And I'd just like to recognize Jan. I came to the Medicaid Transformation Group on Friday, and I think I was there early, so, and had an opportunity to meet all the vendors and the enrollment broker, and, you know, it was a great opportunity, and just to stress how important this is and what a big transformation it truly is. And there's still a lot of work to do to get the word out. So.
I was there late. I went there on the tail end, so
We had them covered then, Mary.
that was the first day I could drive, and you know I had to go someplace.
Okay, Sheila, anything?
No comments?
Okay.
What they said.
Okay, well, if there's no other comments, I'm gonna move that we adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Got it.
Thank y'all.